Amateur Radio News and Notes for Friday, June 6th, 2025. I'm Ed Kavik, November 2, Echo Charlie. In the log this week, MVARC in the park. David KU8V Victor does an early shift POTA activation. We'll recap the MVARC breakfast and meeting from last week. We'll also look at a DXPedition spotlight of TX5U in French Polynesia. SteppIR will be exiting amateur radio antenna manufacturing. FlexRadio announces the new Aurora series SDRs. We'll talk about some MVARC Nets on the air, see what's happening with DX, give a solar activity update, take a look at some upcoming contests, and as always, take a look at interesting online radio content. Early in the morning on June 4th, I saw that MVARC member and Parks on the Air enthusiast David KU8V Victor was activating Parks in the District of Columbia for an early shift activation. I was able to work him on his way into the office using my mobile setup and heard him doing his always amazing job of handling a pileup and getting POTA hunters in his log. Since I had a few minutes to spare, I swung by his operating location to say hello and snapped a photo of him with his setup in action. When I had stopped by, he had over 70 QSOs in the log on 40 meters alone and intended to hit the higher bands as they opened. It was great seeing David and working him on the air. If you have operations you'd like to share, drop me a line and I may be able to include it in a future amateur radio news and notes. Last Saturday, we had a great turnout for our monthly breakfast. In fact, we had such a good turnout that we needed multiple tables. After the breakfast, we headed over to Corey KN4YZY, our president's place, to test some equipment ahead of field day. We found some equipment that was not in working order, so it might have saved us some grief on the big day. We also tested out a few different antennas on the bands and used our test equipment to diagnose and resolve some issues. Of course, most importantly, we had a fun morning together, and we're looking forward to another fun field day this year. And now a little DXPedition spotlight for TX5U in French Polynesia. Didier, Foxtrot 6 Bravo Charlie Whiskey, has been QRV in Tikahau Tuamotu Archipelago in French Polynesia since May 26th, and is expected to be running until June 9th. He has had a strong signal to the East Coast recently, and I was able to work him on 17 and 20 meters CW on June 3rd. He's targeting 12,000 QSOs on CW and single sideband, and will QSL via OQRS on Club Log and Logbook of the World after 6 months. As of the last log upload on the 4th, he has had 4,618 QSOs uploaded to Club Log. Tikahau is number 140 on the most wanted list for CW and number 123 on single sideband. For more information on Didier's operation, that can be found in the show notes. Antenna manufacturer SteppIR Communication Systems announced that they will stop production of consumer antennas and accessories at the end of August this year. This marks yet another departure from the amateur radio market after the exit of MFJ and the brands they owned a year ago. SteppIR is known for the tunable Yagi-style antennas that used stepper motors to change the length of the driven element so that the antenna is always resonant on the desired transmit frequency. Their antennas were prized for their performance and frequently seen in serious contest stations. At Dayton Hamvention this year, FlexRadio announced their new Aurora series of software-defined radios. These radios offer the ability to transmit up to 500 watts on the HF bands and 200 watts on 6 meters at full duplex while still supporting 120-volt circuits. Their 510 models offer a single spectral capture unit and are the more traditional option, while the 520 models have 2 spectral capture units and are capable of operating SO2R, that single operator 2 radio. They come with an integrated tuner and run CESSB for a punchier signal. As we go to press, the MSRP on their site is $61.99 for the AU510 and $73.49 for the AU510M with the Maestro display on the front. For the AU520, it starts at $8,599. Getting the Maestro unit of the AU520M will cost you $9,599. These units are not yet available and are in the pre-order phase. There are different delivery options, with the earliest group being Q4 this year, the second group Q1 2026, and the latest one after those two groups have been fulfilled. And now it's time to talk about some MVARC Nets on the air. Every Tuesday at 7 p.m., we have our 2-meter FM net on the repeater that is immediately followed by a 2-meter digital net on Yaesu System Fusion C4 FM. On Saturdays and Sundays, we have the MVARC Slow Speed CW Roundtable at 7:30 a.m. on 3.565 megahertz, usually going about 12 to 15 words a minute. Of course, we'll QRS or slow down to wherever you're comfortable. And after that, at 8:30 a.m., we have the MVARC Cherry Tree Net on Saturday and Sunday on 3.920 megahertz lower sideband, where we always have a fun discussion, and we're always looking for you to join us. And now it's time to take a look at what is happening with DX. There will be a good amount of DX on the bands this week. Its stations on the air include French Polynesia, as we mentioned, also Coral Island, Bermuda, St. Martin Island, Tokelau, Kuwait, Falkland Islands, Marcus Island, Minami-Torishima Islands, and Antarctica. A calendar of DXPeditions can always be found at dxnews.com/calendar. And now it is time for a solar activity update. As we go to press, the solar flux index was 128, and the estimated sunspot number was 92, with 5 numbered sunspot regions visible from Earth. Over the last week, the SFI has decreased. Solar activity has been moderate recently, with geomagnetic field being at quiet to active levels, and the KP was below 4. Solar wind reached 765 kilometers a second on Wednesday and has decreased to near 580 kilometers per second. High-speed streams are expected to persist through Sunday, when a glancing blow from the June 3rd coronal mass ejection is expected to enhance magnetic field parameters and make a G1 storm likely. Unsettled to active levels are expected to persist through the 8th. The chance of solar radiation storms at the S1 or greater level is low at 5%. R1 to R2 radio blackouts are possible with a predicted probability of 40%. R3 or greater blackouts are unlikely with a 5% chance predicted. There's a chance of 6-meter propagation, so keep an eye on the band and spotting clusters to be ready when the next time that magic band does its thing. And in fact, there was an opening this week on Tuesday where I was able to work a station in Quebec from Virginia from my mobile station via CW. So despite some challenging daytime conditions, HF conditions have been favorable overall. It does remain a fantastic time for amateurs of all license classes to get on the air and work the world. Good sources of real-time solar information include spaceweatherlive.com and solarham.com. A good overview of conditions can be found at dx.qsl.net/propagation. To see delayer absorption and associated radio blackout information, go to the NOAA DREP page. And to see real-time maximum usable frequency, or MUF, and critical frequency, or FOF2 information from radio SON data, visit prop.kc2g.com. And now it's time for a look at some upcoming contests. On the contest calendar this weekend, we can look forward to the 1010 International Open Season PSK Contest, the VK Shires Contest, the Tizza Cup on CW, the Wake Up QRP Sprint, the Atlantic Canada QSO Party, the Kentucky QSO Party, the UKSMG Summer Contest, the IARU Region 1 Field Day on CW, the RSGB National Field Day, the ARRL International Digital Contest, and the 4 States QRP Second Sunday Sprint. As always, the K1USN SSTs, the MSTs, and the CWTs will also be on the air. The full contest calendar with events and exchanges can be found at contestcalendar.com. And now let's wrap things up here with some online interesting radio content. Michael, KB9VBR, takes a look at the Radioddity HF009 antenna. James, Kilo Echo 8, Papa Zulu November, does his first POTA activation with the FTX1 Optima from Yaesu. Save It for Parts modifies a Wi-Fi antenna to receive GOES satellite data. Mike, K8MRD, experiments with off-grid power solutions, trying to find one without RFI. I'll tell you, it was a little challenging. Ramon, EA5IW, does Bike QRP. Matt, M0DQW, brings the hammer down, quite literally, on the Quansheng TK11. Adam, K6ARK, and Mark, KD7DTS, activate SOTA overnight on 160 meters. This is a fun one. And W4EMB shows a loading coil jumper for the Chelegant's MC750. Definitely a fun project. Alan, W2AEW, shows off his build of the Solder Smoke Challenge Direct Conversion Receiver, a very nice build, as you'd expect from Alan. Josh, KI6NAZ, takes a look at cheap speakers for portable operations. Mike, K8MRD, tests out a 400-watt solar panel for portable operations. Ralph of Electronics for the Inquisitive Experimenter first goes into building a matching network with a Smith chart, and then he shows us how to do it with numerical methods. This is a master class on this and a whole lot of fun if you are into it. Josh, KI6NAZ, goes bike portable for SOTA and POTA activations. Dr. Tamitha Scove, WX6SWW, goes deep into what happened in the last week that wrecked the HF bands with some solar storms. Matt, M0DQW, takes a look at a Moonraker 10 and 12 meter rig. And Kevin, W1DED, talks to Chris, KL9A, about his CQ-WPX CW win from CQ9A in Madeira Island. And that's it for this week. I'm Ed, November 2, Echo Charlie for Amateur Radio News and Notes. Thanks, as always, for joining us. Hope you have a wonderful week ahead. Best 73. We look forward to seeing you next week.